Alright, I think we got about 2 videos worth left out of these titles. Got 14 randoms and 2 end caps left. So let's see what we roll next from the random number generator. It's going to be 2. What is 2? The healer who was banished, ... Okay. Probably just going to be a straight fantasy series with guild mechanics and leveling and such. I have not heard a single person talk about this series, but that hasn't stopped me before, so let's jump in. Oh, that is so mid. No, I wouldn't even call this mid. This is just flat out mediocre, bordering on bad. No. I got 4 minutes in. The only reason I got 4 minutes in is because I wanted to time how long this unbroken string of exposition was in this, not opening scene, but like the scene after the OP, which, by the way, the OP is like the most twee anime opening I've heard in a long time. Feels like something from like 2010, 2011 in terms of fantasy anime. Very out of place. Concerning what I think is going to see the subject matter, which is this is another. By the way, the full title. What's the full title of this one? The healer who was banished from his party is, in fact, the strongest. And you know how much I love those shows. But he doesn't do the thing that way that is prescribed to do, but he's actually super cool and awesome because the system doesn't recognize it. I'm not against this type of show in practice, but I know it's going to be bad when it's the title. Specifically this specific subgenre, when it's the title, I know it's going to be bad because it's not going to be unique in any way. And I know, and this fucking unbroken string of exposition that lasted 40 seconds straight, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's the introduction to this character, and it's in the opening scene right after the OP, it feels like a fucking eternity. 40 seconds it takes for this guild lady, who is a fucking cunt, by the way. This adventurer girl walks up to a guy who is looking for a party, and she's like, yeah, I want to join your party. And this receptionist, and first of all, everyone in the fucking guild hall, like, pauses to be shocked that someone would ask this dude to be in their party. And then this bitch-ass receptionist is like, whoa, 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 don't you know who this is? This is Laust, the Ignoramus, followed by 40 seconds of exposition about how bad of a healer he is, which he doesn't actually sound like that bad of a healer. He just sounds like a fucking mediocre healer. He only knows how to do basic healing spells, which, you know, sometimes that gets the job done. In my sessions of D&D and Pathfinder that I've done, sometimes basic healing spells get the job done. Fucking assholes. What a bunch of goddamn jerks. Immediately, not fun, doesn't make any sense, and it looks incredibly mediocre. Very poor compositing. Character designs are super bleh. Like, the main girl isn't even that cute looking, even though they, like, did their damnedest to dress her as cute as possible. In theory, I could see, if I was, like, a young anime fan, I could vibe with this, but I've seen too much to know that this is good in any way. This is incredibly mediocre and not fun to watch in any way. Well, it's a good thing I bailed on this show as early as I did, because it's not very often you come across a sub 6 score on Mal. Not that Mal scores matter that much to me, but when it's below a 6, boy, you really got to work for it. Also, never heard of Studio L ever. Apparently, they did the one about the double isekai where he was summoned to another world twice or whatever. Anyway, this show sucks donkey dick. We're taking it off the list. Goodbye. Okay, 13 randoms left. Let's see who's next. 8. What is 8? Haigakura. I don't know anything about this one. I think I saw the key visual at one point and it had a bunch of pretty boys on it. So it's either an idol anime, a comedy anime, or just something else entirely. Let's find out. Alright, it's been a hot minute since I've seen some main characters as obnoxious as these two. Boy, do they suck. Really, really terrible comedy. Do not have good chemistry together because they're basically just yelling at each other or just being stupid idiots at each other. Also looks like shit. Very, very mid-production. Terrible compositing. This dude with the fucking magenta purple hair. Hate his character design. This is a fantasy anime, by the way, about like gods and stuff. Also, it's streaming on YouTube. It's on that It's Anime channel or whatever. I don't know if this is the same channel that did the stuff that I talked about last season that streamed on YouTube. But it's about the same quality. This is bad. Just flat out bad. Alright, Haigakura is coming off. Come on. Coming off the list. Let's see what we roll next. It's gonna be 6. Nina the Starry Bride. I think I remember some people talking about this one, maybe. If there were, it's not a lot. I have no clue what this one's about. Maybe it's a shoujo. That would be nice. I haven't had a shoujo in a while. Fuck it. Let's figure it out. Yeah, I don't particularly care for this one. It's not great looking. I really do not like the character designs at all. And there's a lot about it that just feels kind of inconsistent. Like, it's a street rat with really pretty eyes is brought in to replace a princess that just died. Sort of a... Fuck, what was that shoujo fantasy series that I was reading? Prince Freya. Sort of like that. Except without the cross-dressing. But it's like in this first episode, like a few minutes ago from where I was, I got like 14 minutes in. They're like, please, you have to do this. If not, they're going to behead us. And she's like, fine, I'll try. And then like I got to this point, it's like, don't forget, if we fail, we're all going to die. And she's like, wait, we're all going to die? I'm like, did we not just go over this? Or is it the revelation that she's also going to die? So just kind of like not great clarification there. And also, I just don't get this MC fully. Like, she's grew up on the street, super poor, stealing from nobles. And I don't understand why she doesn't, after being betrayed by him. Well, no, I do kind of get it. She's just being very stubborn about this whole damn thing, being kidnapped and being turned into a fake princess. But, like, I guess I just didn't see enough of her in her poverty-stricken life to make me think, like, yeah, she absolutely wants to stay poor and live this way forever, as opposed to being royalty. They rushed that part a little bit, I guess. I would have liked to know a little bit more about Nina before she became the replacement princess. So, yeah. Not terrible by any stretch, but like the last two, but nothing particularly special about it either. Alright, Nina, the Starry Bride, off the list. Roll another random, see what we get. It's gonna be 2. Goodbye, Dragon Life. I think I've seen a lot of the whatever streaming service this is on push this one a lot, but I have not seen anyone I know talk about it. Let's give it a go. Well, that was just a whole lot of nothing. I watched the first episode of Goodbye Dragon Life. This is another one of those things where it's like all-powerful deity gets reincarnated as a human. This time it's a dragon, but he still has his mythical dragon powers with him, and it makes the story completely devoid of conflict or intrigue or anything noteworthy. The closest this story got to being interesting was when I thought he was gonna fuck the snake girl, which would have made this story so much more interesting than it would have been. Like, dude, like, she is quite literally being like, hey, I need a husband who's, like, resistant to poison and stuff, so that, you know, I can, like, make babies and everything. She's got her tits out and everything. And he's like, that sounds tough. Well, good luck with that. What a boring character. And at the very end of the episode, it's like, yes. I'm no longer the loner dragon that I used to be. I have a family and friends now. Was that a character conflict ever? If it was, you completely skipped over it. Also, this animation and artwork is bland as shit. Its action scenes are fucking boring as hell, except for the one point where he runs really fast and his legs are going and, like, I know it's not supposed to be funny, but boy was it funny. I feel like there was another anime like that from this year or last year that did that. It was like, I think it was that one that was adapting from a manhwa. I forgot what it was called, but it was like real edgy. But anyway, color palette for this anime is fucking dog shit. Really flat, bright colors that don't mesh very well. God, this show was boring. Okay, goodbye, Dragon Life. Goodbye from this list. Let's roll the random number generator again. We're down to 10 randoms. 1. Okay. Blue Lock versus U20 Japan. Really liked the first season of Blue Lock, but boy, did I hear some stuff about this season, about the animation completely shitting the bed, because Bandai decided to completely overwork 8-bit this season, and the last season, and probably the upcoming season. Well,
Let's see if it's at least watchable.
That season had no goddamn right to have its final episode be one of the best episodes from all of 2024. What the fuck? Okay, just watched all of Blue Lock Season 2, Blue Lock versus U20 Japan. Wow. So, I guess we'll tackle the elephant in the room right away. Yes, the overall animation quality, I'm going to be specific and say, no, I'm going to be specific and say the amount of animation has gone down significant, or no, the amount of hand-drawn animation has gone down significantly since season 1 and has been replaced by a lot of really not good CG. Now, granted, season 1 also had some not so good CG, but boy, there is so much more of it in this season. In particular, its use of foot shots and the way that it has characters dribble and just shots of their feet and the ball, and the way that the ball moves looks worse. The way that the characters move around looks worse. It's definitely a downgrade. And yet, the story still manages to shine through just like Blue Lock always does, actually. And it does the age-old anime trick of when you can't do animation, rely on symbolism and artistry. And oh boy, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in this. The first half definitely severely lacking in it overall. It's not really until the actual game starts that we get some of the more, like, the really interesting, like, actual, like, imagery and symbolism and stuff. But I will say the first half still has, and the whole series really has really strong uses of color and shading and lighting and such. You can go back to my what was that? Was that last year's winter season when I covered Blue Lock, I think? So winter 2023. I believe that's when I covered the first season of Blue Lock. So you can go back and hear stuff that I've already talked about with that in that video, because it's pretty much, a lot of it is kind of the same except for the stuff that I've mentioned here. I will say also the compositing has gotten significantly worse as well, especially during the second half of the series when they're in the stadium and you have the characters in the foreground and the stadium full of people in the background. Those shots look kind of terrible. They are not good. There's no way around it. They're not good. And yet, this show was still good. I can't call it really good because the quality is so incredibly spotty overall, but it sure was fucking hype. Like, just as hype as the first season, if not more so in some areas. Now, granted, it's been almost 2 years since I saw the first season, so I don't quite remember all of it, but damn, this is a well loved arc for a reason that I see now, and not just for that really fucking bizarre impregnation metaphor that Shido comes up with right in the womb. Whew. He doesn't actually say that in the anime, but he comes real close. He comes real close. And that's one of the things I talked about this. I'm pretty sure I talked about this with the first season, but the thing that makes Blue Lock so fun is that this show is fucking goddamn insane. It is so full of its own hype and so high on its own linguistic supply and rhetorical supply of rhetoric, not rhetoric. You get what I'm saying. And just the way that it is so goddamn extra about everything is so fun to watch. Like the introduction of, like, I think Shido came in at the very end of last season, so we really did not get a lot of him at all. And so seeing him just be this absolute fucking mad dog of a person was incredible, and see him bounce off of all the other characters, and just to see all of the characters bounce off of all of each other. Now that we have like a whole season under our belt of like fully understanding how these characters work, we really get to see some more of the intricate interactions amongst these characters, like between Isagi and Rin, and we got a little bit more Isagi Bachira action. We got Baro coming back with his fucking giant ox self. We got some more of like the top. We got introduced to a bunch more characters, like some of the more top characters, and even some more characters around like Isagi's level to start with. That I really liked the. Was it Kiori? I forgot what his name is. The light blue haired guy. Liked him a lot. Just that is what makes this show work, is the absolute insanity of it all, and how well these characters are able to bounce off each other, both as characters and as like players. You actually feel like you can. This show is really good at making you feel like you understand these extremely complex interactions of egoists and how the game progresses as a result of the chemical reactions between all of them. Now, this season does have a little bit less in terms of like character progression or regression in some instances than the first season, but I think that's also just a result of there being fewer characters in this season, because the first season just had so many to work with. But now we are starting to get the Blue Lock crew narrowed down to the best of the best, and we're seeing how those people are changing as Blue Lock progresses. We see Isagi finally coming to the forefront as like a top tier player. Like he was always like the big brains of the operation before, but now he's not just like in the background of everything. He is fully front and center for everyone to see, and everyone knows it. So good for him. Rin's arc with his brother in this, I really liked the interactions between these two, because it definitely feels like they're both in the wrong for A, misunderstanding each other's intentions and desires, and B, once they find out those misunderstandings, not really working to resolve that, just being their own selfish, stubborn selves and just pushing forward. I did not predict the ending to that character arc in this season at all. I probably should have, but it was a really great twist that adds Isagi into the mix there and sort of forces Isagi and Rin together as a new rival pairing going forward. Loved Aiku as the captain of the U20 team. He's a great sort of counter to the entire philosophy of the Blue Lock program, where it's like everyone in Blue Lock is going to be the best striker in the world. And so Aiku's like, well, I'm going to be the best defenseman? I think it's defenseman in the world, and just crush all of you fucking boring ass strikers into the dirt. Really, I liked that particular line from his backstory. It was like, you just keep mass producing these boring ass strikers, so I'm going to be the best defender instead of being a striker and crush everyone that you create. That was so fucking cool. That if that's the thing about Blue Lock, is if you are not bought into the hype, this show is probably really dumb and stupid to you. Especially if you're one of the, like, this isn't how soccer is supposed to be played kind of people. If you're not bought into what Blue Lock is selling, you're going to think this is really dumb and stupid. But I'm bought in, and this is hype as fuck. Also, I do think we are finally starting to see how Blue Lock's philosophy actually can shape a group of players into being a cohesive team. Like, they do so, despite still having the striker mentalities, they are sort of falling into place regarding their specific positions, and just sort of falling in line with their own unique skills. Like with Nico being the sort of the pillar of their defense, with how broad his range of view on the field is. This show is so cool. Also, one of the things that I definitely have to point out about this show that is probably the reason why it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been, especially in the first half, is the music almost never stops. Well, not almost never, but there is a ton of usage of background music and soundtrack music in this show. And the variety of it is surprisingly varied, from hard rock to like electronic to orchestral to jazz. Apparently there's like one jazz track in this that's really fucking cool. And there was like one moment in, I forget which episode, I think it was like episode 30, well, if you count the whole thing as one series, episode 30, it's one somewhere around there, where this succession of background tracks just got faster and faster and faster in tempo, up to just like a hard cut point, where the entire thing shifted momentum. And I think that's, in a way, not only does the intensity of the background music keep the show moving forward, but relying so much on it also makes the moments where it doesn't have music almost more impactful than the music itself. Like, the silence in the big hype moments really stands out. Now, granted, it didn't always succeed at that, because there are just some spots where the show really drags. A lot of times it's in the standard moments of shonen over talking everything and over explaining an entire scenario, and so everything just gets kind of dragged out. But there wasn't as much of that as I was expecting, or if there was, it got covered up by either the music or the visuals, which, while the compositing was extremely shaky throughout it, the actual shot composition most of the time, the way things are framed, was usually very solid. And I do have to mention the last episode again, because the back half of the last episode, almost all of it is letterboxed, and I've mentioned this before on this channel, where a show will letterbox something just to make it look cool, without thinking of what the actual frame looks like when it's letterboxed. This is not one of those instances. They very clearly thought about how the letterboxing affected the frame, and so they constructed and blocked the frame with that in mind to make some really fucking stellar shots. And also, that's like the one moment in this show where the animation really stepped up its game, and the animation really came through with this sort of breakdown of the character model. Not necessarily the models, but just sort of peeling away some of the after effects and just and post processing that makes these designs stand out and sort of covers up for the lack of animation at times, and just gets down to the bare bones of it. And just goddamn, the showdown between Rin and his brother was so fucking cool. And there were so many shots in that where it was like, yes, you actually thought about how the frame looks when it's letterboxed. This is so fucking cool. So yeah, I can't give full marks to it because there was a lot of stuff in this that annoyed me or was just flat out not good looking. But man, it's still Blue Lock. I hope that Bandai stops crushing 8-bit into paste and lets them manage their properties correctly, because like this was going on. This came out right after they were working on Slime, which was right after they were working on they were working on Slime also at the same time as the third season of Yuru Camp. And I think there was a season of Irregular at Magic High School in the mix somewhere. I don't watch that show, so I don't know where exactly that fell. But 8-bit's not a big studio, so them getting bought by Bandai Namco and just having them turn on the anime printing machine was not a good idea, because pretty much all of those shows that I mentioned that I watched, I could say definitely suffered as a result of that. So hopefully 8-bit's schedule clears up for the foreseeable future. I think obviously they already announced the next season because they just introduced a new character at the very, very end of this final episode, who I think is voiced by Mamoru Miyano. I think that was what the announcement said. I'm not entirely sure. Also, huge shout out to the voice cast in this show. Although I will also say one of the things that annoyed me about this season, that probably annoyed me about the first season, but I don't remember, is Isagi's whiny moments. They really drag a scene down, because they are just the entirety of Blue Lock's voice acting is hyper exaggerated, and so the whininess gets hyper exaggerated, and it's just kind of annoying at times. But yeah, Blue Lock good.
Alright, Blue Lock versus U20 Japan complete. And we're going to scroll a lot higher up than I thought I was going to with this one and put it in the number 29 spot for now with a strong 7. That, it definitely defied expectations for how the internet talked about it, but also definitely a step down from the first season. Okay, so now how many randoms we got left? 9. So we'll do 2 more randoms probably for this video, unless this is another one that I talk a long time about. Well, let's see what it is. 4. How I Attended an All Guys Mixer. This was one that got a decent amount of buzz when the first promos for it came out, and then the first episode came out and everyone stopped talking about it. So let's see what it do. There's really nothing more annoying than an unfunny comedy. I got a fourth of the way through the first episode of, what is it?
what's the full title of this one? Fucking that time I hold on. What's it? How I attended an all guys mixer. And the joke is that it's girls in men's drag, and they look really handsome. That's the joke. That's the whole joke. And it's the guys going, oh, but they look like dudes, but I'm getting all flustered, but they look like dudes. Maybe if this was my first, maybe if I was not constantly interacting with the boundaries of gender identity, this would be funny, maybe. But boy, I know too much gender to find any of this funny or intriguing or anything. It's also, it's not particularly good looking. The girls are handsome, but not super handsome. They're very plain designs. If this went like an ecchi route, I'm not sure how it would do an ecchi route, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. This was boring and lame. That's all I can say. Boring and lame.
Alright, All Guys Mixer coming off the list. Down to 10 shows total for the rest of the fall season, and by proxy for the rest of the year. But we got 8 randoms left, so we'll do one more for this video. And it's gonna be 6. Yakuza Fiancé. Okay. There was a lot of hype behind the manga for this one, and a lot of skepticism behind the anime. I think Studio Dean did the adaptation for it, so you know how that goes. But you know what? I finished Monster last yeah, that was this year actually. So I'm not opposed to giving Studio Dean a chance, obviously. So let's try it out.
Why are the Studio Dean shows the only ones that have people fucking in them? Like, between this and Monsters, I think this is the only time that I've seen people, like, reference the fact that people are having sex at all? Maybe? Like, if you don't watch a lot of anime, that sounds like a very weird statement, but if you watch a lot of anime, you're like, oh, right, this is a surprisingly sterile medium. But Studio Dean's the only one that goes full on like, hey, let's go fuck. Like, episode 3 opens with a dude eating some girl out. I'm like, okay. Sadly, I did not make it through this show. I got 5 episodes into Yakuza Fiancé, hoping it would be more of that, hoping it would be more sensual than it was. And it certainly tries, but there's 2 problems. A, it's a Studio Dean show, so it looks like fucking crap. Now, they do their damnedest to make it not look like crap. Some of the character designs are really good. I think the main girl's design, whose name Yoshino. I think Yoshino's design is really solid. Not particularly complex, but pretty solid. But the main dude, I think the only reason I started to find him more attractive as the series went on was just because I got used to it. Because, like, the first few episodes, he is fucking jank looking. The haircut and the eyes, it just doesn't work. And, like, the angularness of his face, it just does not work. And on top, and that's just sort of the symptom of the Studio Dean of it all. If you're a younger anime fan and mostly know Studio Dean from Konosuba, Studio Dean was never known to be a good studio. or not never, but in the modern times is not known to be a good studio. And now that Konosuba is off at a different studio, they don't even have that as redemption. So now we get stuff like this and Re-Monsters, which, if you'll recall, I finished Re-Monsters, but also I pointed out a lot throughout that review that the show looked fucking terrible. And this show is the same. The color palette is intriguing, but weird. Editing can be kind of janky, and there's just, in terms of art and animation, there's a lot of jank to it. And the second reason this show doesn't work is because it's not... well, I'm not going to say that this isn't a reason why the show didn't work. It's just a... This is not a romance. This is not a rom-com or anything. Or at least it's not supposed to be. But... Or maybe it is. Because it's like, very clearly the main dude is just a fucking insane, psychotic Yakuza dude. Even though he doesn't technically work for the Yakuza. And so... He is the main ship for this series, but it's very clear that she is just not into him at all. So then, what's the point of this being like a... Like, with all the sensuality around this series, and the OP and the ED, and... I don't get what the appeal of this show is, actually. Is it supposed to be a crime thriller? In that sense, I can kind of understand it. But also, the dialogue is fucking really not written very well. It's... Like, there are a lot of points where the dialogue just sort of feels like a run-on sentence. There's a lot of stuff that's just written that just doesn't make any sense, or like stuff that just comes complete. Like episode 5, the princessy characters, the Ojo-sama's characters, an analysis of the main guy. What was it? Miyama? I already forgot his name. Of the main guy, where she's like, "You didn't give a shit about anything that I was saying this entire time." I was like, did he not? I did not get that at all from his conversation. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention? So, like, just... Maybe that's also the fault of the animation as well, and the artwork just not conveying that. But, like... the script feels the script feels just as janky as the show. And, like... Some of the insanity of it all sometimes can be pretty fun. When it leans into some tropes, it can be pretty fun. Like, also, see, there are some parts of this where I'm like, yeah, I could probably coast on this, and maybe the chemistry will get better between the two leads. But also, I don't want that, really, because it's very clearly they're not... I don't know. This show's frustrating, but more than that, it's just not written well enough to retain my interest. The jank of the writing is not good. The jank of the animation is not good. Yeah, just not for me, I guess.
Okay, Yakuza Fiancé coming off the list. Now it's time for another end cap. Ranma 1/2, the remake of the classic anime and the classic Rumiko Takahashi manga. I actually read, I think, like, about 60% or maybe 2/3 of the manga a while back. And I haven't seen the original series. So I've been hearing good reviews about this one. So let's jump into some gender-bending rom-com.
Well, damn, that was surprisingly fun. Really liked that a lot. Just finished up the first season of the Ranma 1/2 remake. Fun story about this anime. Hold on, real quick. This is actually one of the first manga that I ever read. The double volumes that Viz makes started coming out when I was in college, and I started picking that up. And I got about 60-ish% through, somewhere between 60 and like 66% through the manga, because it's a long-ass manga. What is it, like 40 volumes, I think? Or 38 volumes, somewhere around there. And around the 2/3 point was where I just got too repetitive for my liking, but this was, like, this anime remake reminded me of why I liked the series so much in the first place, in that it's really fucking funny. Like, this was a very funny series. Like, the comedic banter is really good, the gags are really solid, the timing's really good, and all of that translates well into this anime. Honestly, the anime might be even funnier than the manga, or at least it's like more on a beat for beat moment. Might be even, now I shouldn't say that because it's been, God, how long ago did I try reading Ranma? It's been almost a decade at this point. So I'm not gonna definitively make any comparisons to the manga, but this remake definitely reminded me of why I liked this series so much in the first place. A lot of people were pointing out some like differences between this and the original series from the 90s, I think it was. I didn't watch the original series because that is hundreds of episodes of stuff, but I really like this version. It's just incredibly cartoony. That's the word for it. This feels very cartoony in a way that a lot of anime aren't, without it being like Western cartoony. It still feels like an anime, but it's also just kind of very zany and just high energy in a way that a lot of anime comedies aren't. And I think the slightly simplified character designs help that out quite a bit. I wasn't a huge fan of them at first. I felt sorry, I'm very tired after finishing this. I felt they felt a little too like round to me, and the outlines were a little too thick and like not fully defined for my liking. But once I saw what they were able to do with these designs, I was all on board. It is just so it makes this show so easy to, or I should say, it gives this show such a wide range of things that it can do visually, with the gags, with the action, with the romantic chemistry. I really appreciate how flexible these character designs are, while still maintaining the Takahashi aesthetic to a certain degree. In the sort of, when they're just sort of like have just sort of like a blank expression, they don't really have that. But once like if there is some sort of charged emotion on the character's face, I'm immediately like, there it is. There's the Rumiko Takahashi. If you're somehow not familiar with Ranma, this is a Rumiko Takahashi series. This is the same author as Inuyasha and Urusei Yatsura. She is an absolute titan of the manga world. And I guess at this point, I guess this is the first full My Anime List entry that I have finished of a Rumiko Takahashi manga, now that I think about it. Um, it was really good. I really, she is, she's got a sense of humor that I really vibe with, but can get extremely repetitive in log chunks, which is what a lot of her manga are just very long stories, which is one of the reasons why I fell off of Ranma. And it's one of I am a little concerned regarding how many seasons this gets, I guess, of whether I'll fall off on it eventually. I think if I recall correctly, it was I can't remember what the character's name was, but it was some kind of dragon lady or something. Was where I fell off the original series, or the I should say the manga. Um, and I could definitely see the anime falling into the same pattern of being overly repetitive because there's only so long. Oh fuck, I must be really tired. There's only so long you can keep the romantic status quo without it getting annoying, but in these early stages it's really solid. Like, I forgot that Ranma and Akane actually have very solid romantic chemistry. Like, episode 8 in particular was just really solid in that regard. They the humor that they bounce off of each other is really solid. Fuck, why am I so fucking tired? Ugh. Anyway, yeah, I just really, I think I actually somehow appreciate Akane even more in this run than I did in the manga. She's still a little too side charactery in certain areas, but I love that she just really does not take anyone's shit most of the time, and she is fully capable of standing up for herself in like 95% of scenarios, but having Ranma stand up for her is where the romantic chemistry starts. It's just that sort of like, I don't need a man, but I wouldn't mind one. Well, actually, Akane would not. I think Akane is still at the stage where she just does not want to deal with any men. For obvious reasons in the show, where it's just like everyone just wants to go on, thinks that they have to defeat her in combat in order to go on a date with her. Wild Takahashi shenanigans. This is a wacky ass show, by the way. It's absolutely, some of the scenarios are just absolutely insane and cartoony and very fun. It's a very just lively and very fun show, and perfect what's the word, tone, I guess, for exploring like a gender bender rom-com. Yeah, again, if you somehow don't know what Ranma one half is, main character Ranma is actually a boy, but when he gets hit with cold water, he turns into a girl. When he gets hit with hot water, he turns back into a boy. And so the visuals and the scenarios that they set up regarding that, like the gender changing, like the different ways that they execute that, and all that stuff is very, very. It never got old. Like, it was still, even like in the last episodes of this, the ways that they ended up splashing water on him turned out to be very funny in a lot of circumstances, and just him trying to avoid water was very fun. Sorry, my brain stopped for a sec. I'm just so very tired of pain. That's how much I wanted to finish this show. I was so damn tired from the day, but I wanted to finish this because this is just so an incredibly fun and easily bingeable show with a bunch of very, very fun side characters. I forgot how much I like Akane's dad as this super punchliney kind of character who's not particularly smart or socially aware of what's going on around him. And so his reaction to situations is just always very funny to witness. All the like random episodic characters are very fun. The ice skating duo are just absolutely insane. This, I forget what their names are, but just balls to the wall comedic insanity that is comedically frustrating, if that makes sense. That's a thing with a lot of Takahashi characters, is they are frustrating in either how dense or how dumb they are at times. And I think Ranma is the best version of that Takahashi has written, in my opinion. And it certainly comes off really well in this one. But also that sort of denseness and stubbornness can be used for really strong character interactions as well. Like, the fact that Ranma and Akane are so immensely stubborn does kind of contribute to the chemistry and the will they won't they of it all in like a good way almost. Like, you legitimately understand why they're being so stubborn about this, and yet their attraction for each other is still sort of drawing them together, and so the push and pull of it all was genuinely very fun to follow. Again, I could definitely see that wearing thin with multiple seasons, but I would still absolutely be down for more seasons of this in the future, especially if it's going to look as good as it does in this. They're really like this sort of very candy colory, pastel-y kind of color palette for it. Again, the comedic timing's really quick visually, and also the action is just surprisingly good as well, because that's the other half of Ranma as a manga. It's not just a rom-com, it's a martial arts series, and this new adaptation of it really nails that aspect in a lot of ways. The camera is constantly moving around in the scene in a way that I really was not expecting. Like, we've got some really interesting, like, 2D backgrounds and like hand-drawn backgrounds, and the way that the camera is zooming around in those backgrounds looked really fucking cool. The choreography was really good. The impacts were punchy and like impacting. It's a good martial arts series, which I don't think we've gotten in a while. Well, I guess you could count Windbreaker as one, but like, no, yeah, I guess Windbreaker sort of counts, but that's more of just like that's not really a martial arts series. That's more like a delinquent beat 'em up kind of series. I guess you could still group them in together. But yeah, this genuinely really great choreography and fight scenes. One of my favorite, just like, they didn't have to do this, but they did anyway because it was cool. So you know how like with some anime they'll do like recaps of what the show is about, like banked footage at the start of every episode, like this is the premise of the show, so on and so forth. Tends to happen a lot with like kids shows and stuff. They do that with this one, and it's not. It's like more than half of the episodes, but not all of the episodes. But every time they do it, it's different animation and like a different scenario, and sometimes it's just a completely different art style. And I really appreciated that because it's just a fun way to open an episode with just a nice little burst of creativity and like, oh, you really genuinely care about how this show looks, and you're genuinely trying to get people like engaged right from the jump instead of relying on a bunch of like banked footage to just rehash the premise over and over again. So really loved that. Girl Ranma is pretty cute. Not quite as cute as I was expecting, to be honest. I think I've lived on a diet of Ranma fan art for so long that I forget that the original designs are really good, but like not quite as intense as some of the fan art that I've consumed, I guess. Also, they are cowards for going no nips on the nudity. There is nudity in this show, but they don't even do like streaks of light or anything. They just do bare chest, no nipples, but boobs out. Cowards. Yeah, this show was just so very fun and lively, and just I got this big dumb grin on my face every time I was watching it, and I genuinely really enjoyed watching this show. I'm absolutely hyped for season 2. I don't know how far it's gonna take for them to get to my best girl, which is Ukyo. But the introduction of Shampoo at the very end was very fun. Shampoo, I know, is a fan favorite. She wasn't always my favorite in the manga, but she certainly earned her place in these last few episodes. Very, very fun character. All the characters in this are very fun. I'm kind of hoping they just skip over Haposai. I think that's his name. When they adapt more of this. He's an old man character in a shonen manga. Let's put it that way. So if you were questionable about the gender politics of Ranma before, Haposai's not going to help the case. But I do think they actually balanced that aspect out pretty well in this anime adaptation. Still leans a little too what's not chauvinistic, but a little too much in that direction sometimes, but it never feels overbearing in any way. And just the general chemistry of it all, and just the male characters constantly getting their comeuppance also certainly helps in that regard. Yeah, the show's really damn good. Can't wait for season 2.
Alright, Ranma 1/2 is complete. We're going to go pretty high up on the list relatively. We're going to go right under One Piece Fan Letter in the number 17 spot with a decent 8. God, that show is so fun. Really, really enjoyed that.